Okay, today we're going to talk about something I've been wanting to talk about for a very long time because it is really very important all across the board. Whether you're an atheist or a Christian or a Hindu or a Muslim or anything in between, this matters. It's something I've thought about ever since I was a kid, particularly in high school. I remember we used to have these tests where they would try to figure out what good shape we were in, whether we were in good shape or we were in bad shape. And because I was incredibly thin, and let me tell you guys, I am thin. I can put my fingers around my wrist still to this day. Why am I thin? Because I have the metabolism of a hummingbird. And because I had the metabolism of a hummingbird, I could do 4 chin-ups, and they just thought that was incredible. And they said that I was in great shape as opposed to the guy over there who weighed 320 pounds. Now, was I really in great shape? No, I certainly didn't think I was. I didn't have any stamina. I knew good and well that I could do 4 chin-ups because I was incredibly thin, because I had the metabolism of a hummingbird, like I said. And I could eat an entire pizza and I didn't gain a pound. So, was I any better than him? Well, I certainly didn't think so. I knew that he had different problems than I had. Now, as I got older, I got into a lot of different workouts. I got into a lot of martial arts. I got into some weightlifting. And that certainly gave me some definition. It certainly changed the way my muscles were to some extent, gave me more stamina, things like that. Is it why I'm thin? No, it's not at all why I'm thin. I have a good friend named Draco, who I don't think will mind me talking about this because he puts it all over Facebook. And he used to weigh quite a bit when I first met him, and he came to weigh even more. But he decided he was going to lose all that weight, and so he seriously worked out. I worked out with him one day, and he completely left me in the dust. Now, he still weighs more than I do. He is a big guy. He will probably always weigh more than I do. But he's in a lot better shape than I am. I'm also a vegetarian. Now, I've been a vegetarian since I was, well, 0. Why? Because I was raised vegetarian. Never ate meat. I didn't like meat. As I got older, the idea of eating meat was actually somewhat repulsive to me. Now, I was a vegetarian because my parents were of a particular religion, or rather of a particular Christian denomination, that didn't believe in eating meat. And because of that, I never wanted to eat meat. But as I grew older and I got into my 20s, and I was getting more and more out of that denomination, and I started getting more and more into Buddhism and Hindu and Jainism and religions like that, I started becoming vegetarian for different reasons. I was vegetarian because I didn't want to hurt animals. I didn't like the idea of sustaining my life off the life of another animal. And so I remained vegetarian. Now, was that an accomplishment? No, that wasn't an accomplishment of any kind. If I'd been raised my entire life eating red meat and thought it was the greatest thing in the world, that would have been an accomplishment. The truth is that somebody who still eats meat but gave up, say, red meat, ate meat their whole life but gave up red meat, is probably more accomplished than I am. Now, if I gave up milk and eggs and wearing all leather, that might be an accomplishment. That would be hard for me, because that's something I've done my entire life. Now, I'll admit, I don't tend to wear a lot of leather. My belt is leather, and some of my shoes are leather, but I don't wear much. Is that an accomplishment? No, I'm not that fond of leather coats to begin with. The point being that judging other people is something that's an absurdity to begin with. And it's always been an absurdity. Something I noticed in my denomination, and I think this goes for a lot of denominations, a lot of Christian denominations, and indeed a lot of religions, who tend toward legalism, I was born into it. But a lot of people came to that religion out of nothing. And I used to wonder, why is it? What fascinates people about legalistic religions? Well, through all of the, shall we say, new Christians that I met in my life, something stood out to me finally. after quite a bit of comparing. And that was that if you have, say, I don't know, 10 rules, for instance, and you're breaking 4 of them, well, you're a pretty bad guy. There's not much saving you. But if you have 150 rules to follow, and you're only breaking 4 or 5 of them, or shoot, 10 of them, 20 of them, 30 of them, 40 of them, you're still doing a whole lot better than breaking 4 out of 10. Now, granted, a lot of those rules may be rules you never really cared much about. For instance, my denomination didn't believe in smoking. Well, I never had any interest in smoking. I've never had a problem with smoking. I have a brother who has quite a bit of a problem with smoking and has tried everything in the world to stop smoking, even though it's giving him several kinds of pneumonia, all kinds of lung problems, and will probably kill him one day, and he knows that good and well, and has tried I don't know how many different things to stop smoking, and he can't. All of us, every single one, have a tendency to compare our strengths with other people's weaknesses. Whether you're an atheist who thinks you're better than a Christian because you don't believe in God, or you're a Christian who thinks you're better than an atheist because you do. Whether you're me thinking I'm better than someone that's overweight because I'm thin, even though it's not like I earned it, or being vegetarian, or any of it. It is so incredibly dangerous for all of us to compare our strengths with other people's weaknesses, or even our strengths with other people's strengths, or our weaknesses with other people's weaknesses. The truth of the matter is that whether it's your sister or your brother or your mother or your father or your kids, you don't know what they're going through, and you will never know what they're going through. You're not in their heads. Even the people that you really, really think you know, you have absolutely no clue what they've gone through and why they do the things they do and you do the things you do. And what's really important, and this is why I go over in my morality video about how morality really applies to us and not other people, and that is because that's what it's for. It's for turning the inner eye and seeing our own problems, not for comparing ourselves to other people and figuring out why we're good and they're bad. Because I'm sorry, it just doesn't work that way. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some of us, especially those of us that have a great fascination with guilt, who will tend to compare all our own weaknesses with all our own weaknesses and our own weaknesses. And that's all we think about. And we just wind up driving ourselves crazy. And obviously I'm not advocating that. We do have to balance everything, including our own guilt. But concentrate on yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror. It's not necessarily bad to compare yourself to other people when it helps you. But when you start turning it on that other person, it's not doing anyone any good. Take my word on it. I'm the Urban Omnist. Believe it or not, after all these years, still trying to figure out how not to judge people.